Torrential rains in and around Johannesburg are causing havoc in the city. Parts of the city have been submerged with some roads blocked. A number of families have been displaced. With more rain forecasts, some Soweto residents are being advised to evacuate. My colleague Heidi Giokos is on the ground and joins us now with the latest. Heidi, always a pleasure speaking to you. A very good morning. Let's just talk a little bit about what is currently happening on the ground. I do understand that you're in Protea this morning.
Yes, so Protea was one of the areas here in Soweto, Faith, that was severely affected by the rains yesterday. It seems as though it's something that Soweto residents weren't really expecting, as they said that the rain wasn't as heavy as they thought it was, and homes have been destroyed. People have actually been displaced because of this. But we are in Protea, just a couple of meters away from the police station. I'm going to ask my colleague Kamu to just show you. I'm going to try and move out of shot so we can actually just show you. It seems as though this forms part of the Klip River as well, and as you can see, there is complete destruction here. There's literally a whole piece of road that's lying on the grass here, and the visuals that we are showing you right now, you can see these are possibly water pipes, but also other infrastructure pipes that have been completely damaged because of the rains. When residents were walking past earlier on, we actually asked them if they have electricity and water, and they do not have either water or electricity. And that blue pipe that you are seeing, that is fresh water that is coming out of that blue pipe. Of course, it has been switched off. But yesterday when we drove past on our way to other homes that have also been affected, there was fresh water gushing out of that pipe because, of course, it has been damaged by this by the rain. So the infrastructure has been damaged. And you know, Faith, this literally reminds me of what happened in KZN with those April floods, where you could not believe the infrastructure damage because of water. But it just shows you the seriousness of how bad those rains actually were. This road is still being used. It seems to be some kind of bridge, and perhaps authorities will have to do an assessment on the safety and strength of this bridge after the rains have damaged this. As you can see, it's completely damaged the opposite side as well, and you can see the rain also having literally covered half of this park. We were told yesterday that Protea Gardens was completely submerged in water yesterday because of those rains. What's interesting here, though, is the fact that you have residents telling us yesterday that they don't believe that this is linked to the floods. They believe that something must have happened, that there must have been some dam that must have opened up and caused the flooding of the Klip River, because they just don't understand how this has been so badly affected. This area has been so badly affected, because normally, yes, there are areas in Soweto that are affected, but not to this extent.
You know, Heidi, as you're speaking, I just watched Rea Vaya bus just pass the camera, and it made me think about how potentially dangerous it is for buses, the amount of traffic to be passing at that time of the morning if infrastructure is so sensitive, and the damage to the road is at this extent. And more than anything else, it's about officials being able to be on the ground to at least guide motorists, guide people in terms of where the safer roads to utilize, or perhaps even deviate and close off that road while they try to perhaps assess the extent of damage. To have a bus that passes by just literally a day after this has happened, it says something about whether or not that road, particularly that you're standing on, can sustain the weight, especially with the damage that we're facing here.
Yes, exactly, and you touch on a very important point about authorities. Where are authorities? Yesterday we were on the ground, we were in Protea Glen, we were in and around Soweto, and we saw no authorities on the ground. Yes, we saw rescue operations trying to rescue as many people as possible that were trapped But right now we aren't seeing authorities. Yes, it might still be a little bit early, but this is the perfect time for authorities to be coming out because it's not raining at this stage. Assessments can be done. And you're right, this road is not a road that should be used. I'm not an engineer and I don't know the extent of damage, but I can tell you, I'm actually going to ask my colleague Kamu to just show you this particular part. If he can come and stand on this side for me, you can actually see the whole infrastructure is completely gone. It's completely washed away. So the actual road at this stage is what is it on at this stage? There is no stability when it comes to this actual road, and this is a very, very busy road. As you mentioned, there are many buses coming through. This road connects to a mall just further up. It connects to Naledi. It connects to Protea Glen Mall. So it's a very busy road that I'm failing to understand where authorities are to try and do an assessment of this. Another Rea Vaya bus is passing us, Faith. As you mentioned earlier, this is probably the third or fourth bus that we've seen. I also just want to mention the fact that Kliptown is an area that has been, interestingly enough, the JRA vehicle has just passed us, so hopefully they do some kind of assessment there. But Kliptown is another area that has been severely affected, and yesterday when we got there, the community was so hostile to us because they're saying that this has happened before and authorities come and do assessments and then they leave and they never come back. But we do understand that people that are very close to the riverbanks have been asked to evacuate because we do know that rains will persist. Let's just listen to authorities on that particular matter.
And fortunately enough for us, there are long-term plans, in fact, that we had also introduced, especially in these areas that were affected by floods. In Kliptown, the plan to relocate or move those that are situated on the flight line has been there for quite some time, and the reblocking had started a few months ago, and we had instructed the contractor to be on site over this weekend so that they are able to pack the stands for those affected families and relocate them into their permanent stands because the contractor has been on the ground for quite some time, and there's been a lot of work that has been undertaking. At Protea South, the plan has always been there. There was a site which was identified called Road Depot Farm in Region G. The consultants were appointed long time ago. They are working on installing services into that particular portion of land where we will be relocating all those that are situated on the flat line again at Protea South. With Nanfit Hostel, we've concluded the audit because we need to determine the number of households that are residing in that wetland, and the process has started again. The procurement process has started in the department where we will be relocating permanently those that are situated on the flat line. So the plan is there to evacuate everyone that, resides on the flight line, especially those that are along Klipspruit River, because it seems to be problematic for us, because every time when it's raining and when we experience heavy rains, we then experience floods, along Klipspruit River.
Well, as you were hearing this conversation as well, Heidi, with the MMC of Infrastructure and Housing speaking about just, some of the plans that they've got in place. Here's the issue, is that it's wonderful to have these plans, but these plans translating into actual housing with the current housing backlog that we've got as a country that we're experiencing, it is no wonder that residents will meet anybody, whether it's a member of the media, whether it's officials, with some kind of hostility, because some of the promises that were supposed to be brought into fruition years ago are still not realized even now. And it looks as though the only thing that the rains are doing at this particular moment is providing some kind of pressure and perhaps casting a spotlight on the gaps of government's lack of promises.
You know, Faith, I've covered floods for a very long time in my career, and this always happens. You have authorities coming in and saying that there are plans to remove people from the riverbanks, to remove people from low-lying areas that will be affected should there be flooding or heavy rains. There is always a spotlight and a hysteria once it happens, and soon after, these communities are forgotten, these communities are neglected, and these communities are told to fend for themselves. And this is highly problematic. Listening to the MMC speaking about the plans to move people, and the plans have always been there. If the plans have always been there, why has this not happened? How do you allow infrastructure like this to be completely damaged? There is another bus passing us. This time it's a Patco bus, and again, this road doesn't seem like it's going to be able to handle the amount of vehicles passing this. And again, it goes back to the point that authorities need to act as quickly as possible. We haven't heard from emergency services, thankfully, about any lives that have been lost. But this is a recipe for disaster. This happens every single year. Yesterday, when we spoke to residents in Protea Glen, they did indicate to us that they had been promised to be moved from the riverbank for some time, and this still is not happening. Their homes have been completely destroyed. They have no one to ask questions to and get answers from, because authorities have not been on the ground. So it's all good and well for the NMC to express this and express the plans that are in place, but the realities on the ground are very different. And of course we will be going around to speak to people, but the issue of Kliptown is one that is boiling under, and that issue is going to explode very soon, because those residents yesterday were very hostile. They refused to engage with us. They even refused, Faith, to allow us into the area to see exactly what happened. There was a house that was completely submerged. A helicopter had to be brought in to evacuate an 88-year-old because they just could not get out. So the situation remains hostile, and if the rains persist, I'm very worried about what infrastructure like this is going to end up looking like.
Heidi, I know that you're on the ground, and of course hopefully we get to cross to you again as this story unfolds and as the day progresses. Much appreciated as always. eNCA reporter Heidi Giokos there on the ground for us in Protea, giving us